I want to run some cooling curve data. So to do that, I'm going to first go up to Experiment, and I'm going to Data Collection, and I'll increase the length of time up to 600 seconds because I want to run this for 10 minutes. And the axis just redrew itself. Presently, the data probe is sitting in a glass of room temperature water. I'm going to turn on the Collect option, and I'm moving the temperature probe into water that I just boiled and removed and put into a regular thermos cup, the type that you can bring coffee in, and I'm waving the temperature probe in this for a minute to sort of stir it, and then I will leave it in the glass, in the styrofoam container, and let it stay there for 10 minutes to see what this particular cooling curve looks like. I've continued to gather the data, and you can see at the times where I'm stirring, as I am now, the different gradients in the solution are being disturbed, and the probe is no longer sitting just at the bottom of the cup. Observations and discussions about this type of phenomenon, about experimental data collection, can always be helpful. If you're displaying this for the class, you can be asking students to work in groups and hypothesize what might happen with the overall curve of, in this case, plain tap water, or you might ask them to think about the experimental conditions that are being modified as I stir, and refer this back to actual lab conditions that might be in health or testing labs. Time when data is being gathered can be a very good time to talk about the enterprise of science itself. The water curve continued to the end. That is the 10 minutes that I set it for, and you can see the trace here, and at the points where I was stirring, you'll see these slight movements in the curve itself. Having finished the first run, I want to now go up to Experiment and ask it to store the last run. Now I'm setting up another scenario. I've put the probe into the glass with simply having room temperature water. I'm going to turn on Collect Data, and I'm still at the room temperature water. I'm now moving the probe into the boiled sugar water solution, and I'm stirring it a little bit as I do this. And when it gets up to the point where it's really measuring the maximum heat and starts then to decline, I'll stop stirring, as I do now, leave the probe, and let this curve play out. I'll stir it periodically, and I'll just let the camera run so that we can see what happens over time with this second curve, which is the sugar water solution that was brought up to its own, quote, boiling point, where I could see the gas bubbles, and then I transferred an equivalent amount into a thermal cup, and we'll see what happens as it continues to capture the data. Now, as we move to the end of the time capture, the data will still continue to be gathered by the probe, but it's not going to be shown here on the graphic display. So let me go up to experiment, and let's indicate that we want to store that run as well.